Hey, are you a writer? Are you thinking of self-publishing your debut novel? Is that why you clicked to watch this video? Hi, I'm Cam, marketing copywriter turned novel writer. I'm self-publishing my debut novel this year and I'm documenting the whole process on this YouTube channel. Today we're talking about the 7 mistakes that are the most common amongst self-publishing authors. Let's get started. Mistake number 1, thinking that it's going to be easier that way. Of course, I'm self-publishing. I don't need to wait for a literary agent or a publisher. I do everything I want. It's going to be simpler, isn't it? No, because first you have to do everything yourself, and there's so much to do. Of course, you can just throw your manuscript on Amazon and hope that someone will find it. But even if you do that, you will still have to do rounds of editing and proofreading and formatting. You also have to do some marketing. You have to think about your pricing strategy. You have to find information about the publishing market. There is so much to do. It's not going to be easier. There's also absolutely no guarantee that you're going to make any profit, and you have to make some investment. So, easier, cheaper, probably not. Mistake number 2, thinking that you can do everything yourself. Of course, you might not have a lot of budget to invest into your debut novel when you're self-publishing. You might also have some skills that you can show off and you can use, of course. However, publishing a book requires a lot of various different skills, and there might be some things for which you need a professional external help. For example, I personally hired an editor and a proofreader, and the work they did was amazing. I hired someone for the developmental edits and the line edits, and also an extra round of proofreading. You don't have to hire people for all of that. You can do some by yourself, or you can find a friend, family member maybe, who could help you. The thing is, it makes a very big difference when you have a professional that's helping you editing your novel. And it's the same with your cover. Your book cover is a very, very important marketing tool. It's the first thing that people are going to see. So hiring a professional designer for your book cover is, again, going to make a huge difference, unless you are yourself a book cover artist. But it's not the case for most authors. Mistake number 3, cutting corners, trying to find shortcuts and ignoring some steps you have to go through. One of the first ways to do that is not doing your research. I've mentioned research already because it is so important, especially if it's the first time that you're self-publishing. You need to learn how it works. You need to learn things about the market itself, about things like pricing, things about book printing. You need to learn about the book publishing industry, but you also need to learn how to do things that you want to do yourself. For example, again, in my case, to do my own formatting, I watched tutorials, I read articles, I did my research. Skipping research is definitely a mistake, but within this cutting corners category, I would also want to add picking the wrong freelancers, picking the cheapest one just because they're the cheapest. Hiring someone to help you with your self-published novel is not as simple as picking the first person who's available or the cheapest. You need to find someone who has an expertise that matches what your book is about, and also to pick someone who has the right skills and who's interested in what you're doing. Going for the cheapest is cutting corners, and cutting corners is a mistake. And finally, within, again, this whole category of cutting corners, of not doing things properly, on trying to find shortcuts, I am going to mention the use of generative AI. Whether it's to help you write your novel faster or edit it in a simpler, faster, cheaper way, this is definitely a mistake. First, you're not sure that you're going to be owning the copyright if you've used generative AI to write your book. Then, there has been some scandals recently about people having used generative AI to edit their book. Apparently, it's easy to spot. Apparently, it makes your book sound soulless and quite generic. In any case, it's probably not a good idea. And again, it is cutting corners. So do the work, hire someone if you can, find someone you know that has the skills and who would be willing to help you. Find a way to have your book written, reviewed, edited, proofread by a human being. To avoid that big mistake, please, find a human if you're not doing it yourself. Mistake number 4, not doing any marketing. This mistake sometimes happens in one particular way, which is definitely the build it and they will come way. When someone writes a novel, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, even if it's the best novel that's ever been written, if you just write it and then put it somewhere online, whether you're sharing it on an app like Wattpad or even worse, you're putting it on Amazon KDP but without any marketing, without any effort around it, it's just going to be lost. You need to make sure that people know about your novel so they can easily find it, read it, and love it. Don't just throw it out there in silence. Mistake number 5. Since we're talking about social media and marketing, that's the perfect transition. Because for me, the mistake number 5 is marketing everywhere for everyone, which also means nowhere for no one. If you're not aiming at a certain specific target audience, you're not aiming at anyone at all. If you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. That's marketing 101. So basically, what I mean by that, and in a way, it's going to make your life easier. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to have a social media account on absolutely every social media or social network that exists. You don't need to be on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. There is absolutely no point in being or in creating a social media presence on more than 2 or 3 different social medias. Find the one that works for you, find the one that works for your audience, but also something that you enjoy, and just stick to it. And again, in order to start building your marketing strategy, and you need to have a marketing strategy if you're self-publishing, you need to know who your book is for. And you can't just say, oh, it's for everyone. That doesn't make sense. No book is for everyone. You don't also want to say, oh, it's for women between the age of 15 and 95 who live absolutely everywhere as long as they speak English. No, you need to know who you're writing for. You need to know who is your main target audience. You might have other people outside of this category also buying your book and loving it. But you need to have a core target audience that's going to help you craft your content. That's going to help you know what you want to write, what you want to talk about. Once you know who you're talking to, it's way easier to know what you want to talk about. In my case, as an example, my ideal reader is a woman, professional, probably living in London. She works in an office, probably doesn't like her job very much, commutes at least 2-3 days a week. She's between 25 and 45, 25 and 40. Okay, that's a wide range. But again, it doesn't mean that teenagers are not going to enjoy my book or that anyone over 40 is not going to like it. This is an example of my personal core target audience. That doesn't mean I'm limited to that category of people, but those are the one I'm talking to in my marketing content. Mistake number 6, giving up because it's too hard, or making your life too hard, so you're gonna end up giving up. That's definitely a common mistake amongst self-publishing authors, especially when you put so much energy and time into your novel, when the stakes are too high and you become overwhelmed by it. So one of the first things to keep in mind is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. You need to pace yourself. You need to make sure that you find a strategy that works for you, that is sustainable in the long term, and you need to make sure that you can remain consistent. One of the worst mistakes that people can do is to start really hard, think that they're going to be posting on social media every day, but after months it becomes really hard and they're exhausting themselves, so they start slowing down, or one day they just skip the post and then they skip it for a second day and a third day, and after a week, oh wow, there's no point getting back to it, and they give up. And that is such a mistake. It's much better to be steady but consistent. Do not post every day if you cannot post every day. No one says you have to. Post once a week even, if this is the only way that you can be consistent on the long term. My other tip to avoid giving up or to avoid making things way too hard is simply to do things that you enjoy. You need to have fun if you want it to be sustainable. Because again, I repeat, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You are self-publishing. You need to prepare months in advance. You're going to be in there months after you launched your book. You might write other books, so you need to make sure that you find a rhythm that works for you. Mistake number 7, not watching out for the burnout. Because yes, even if you are not an employee, even if you are your own boss and you make your own decisions, being a self-published author is really hard, and therefore it's very easy to end up burning out without even realizing it. And that would be stupid, wouldn't it? Because you're just doing something that you really love. So if you want to avoid burnout, here are a few tips. One of them is to accept your limits, accept that sometimes you really need to take a day off, and it's okay. Sometimes you need to take a holiday, and it's also okay, as long as it's not on the week of your big launch. You need to be smart about it, of course. You also need to focus on your goal, on why you're doing it. You need to have clear objectives so they can be attainable. Again, you have to accept that you might not be able to do as much as you initially planned, because we all tend to be very optimistic and very motivated when we get started on the big project of self-publishing. And a lot of authors realize quite quickly that they might have been a little too ambitious. It's very important to remember self-care. It's very important to have your little self-care strategy. Make sure that you take care of yourself. Since you're doing an entrepreneurial project, you're the boss, but you're also the worker. So you have to make sure that you take care of yourself. Sometimes it means skipping a YouTube video. I didn't do it for this one, but I might do it one day. It also means sometimes postponing your edits or your content of the day because you really need to go and meet a friend, or spend some time with your family. Again, forgetting that there is a world outside of your novel is a mistake. That's it for today. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. If you are self-publishing a novel, or if you have already self-published, please share your experience in the comments. I would love to hear about your project, your novels, how it's going for you. If you have any tips or if there are any other mistakes that I have forgotten in this list, please let me know. And I'm gonna say thank you very much again. See you next Monday for another video. Bye!